Darwin with Stardust Farms Limited. Darwin was born and raised on a farm near Stewart Valley, Saskatchewan. He has 50 years as a farmer with 16 years of custom farm operations, including seeding, combining, and spraying, as well as some fabrication in the farm shop. Darwin has also spent 32 years on the Saskatchewan Landing Municipal Council, with the last 15 years of that as Reeve. He has always had an interest in making improvements where there is a shortfall, basically finding solutions to problems and trying to correct or improve upon them. One of the things that Darwin has been working on for the last 12 years is the Staticable system. The Staticable system came about to help solve a combine static problem that exists on every grain farm in the world. And that is what Darwin is going to come and talk to us about today.
Hello everyone. I'm Darwin Johnsgaard. I have come across this problem with combines about 13 years ago now. Well, actually it started long before that, but I didn't know what I could do about it. So here's what was going on back then. I had about a half dozen times on our combine where I had smoldering going on, and even though I was dragging a couple chains for grounding, I still had the smoldering happen, and I was kind of was kind of befuddled. I did not know what the heck I could do about that. So the last time we had smoldering happen, while we were going through the combine, my son took an ohm meter to the chains that we were dragging, and we were dragging 2 chains, and lots of farmers drag chains to try to control their, to have some kind of a ground on their combine. Just from the static electricity that all combines create. The newer combines are probably a little more prone to static than the older conventional ones, but we've seen them catch fire and have issues as well. But anyways, my son took this ohm meter to the chain, and he says, "Well, Dad, it's no wonder you keep having smoldering problems." He said, "You have got no ground at all." And I says, "Well, how can that be?" I said, "I got 2 chains, and one is here actually, and or part of it is here, and the other one was about twice as heavy as the one I got here." But he took an ohm meter to it, and by about 3 or 4 links down, he couldn't even get a reading. So that ohm meter didn't have no, or the chain didn't have any continuity, is what it boiled down to, or continuity you couldn't trust anyway. So we kind of felt that the chain might work a little bit if the humidity's high enough, but sometimes when the humidity's higher, you might not be combining either. So anyways, after he had discovered that we really weren't grounding, or didn't have proper ground, we didn't have any damage happen to our combine, but there was like a dozen spots smoldering on that combine all at the same time. So we knew it was static that had caused that. So anyways, I wanted to keep combining because it was a good day. It was nice and dry, but also windy, which is also not a time you want to have a fire. So anyways, what I did, just so I could keep going, was I just weaved a small piece of cable through the chain that we had, and that seemed to give us proper ground. So we pulled that, dragged those. Well, we did this to both combines, and we dragged that chain around for 2 or 3 days, and that cable started to fray, so it was going to have to be changed, or something had to be done differently. So anyways, we had some rainy weather, so I went home, and I had this idea in mind, kind of somewhat like the Staticable here today, is just a piece of cable with a weight on the end of it, and anyways, I built 10 of those things, and I put 2 in each of our combines, and then I gave the other ones to our local John Deere dealer. We were running John Deere combines at the time. And every color can burn, so it doesn't matter if it's green or red or yellow or whatever color it is. I've talked to everybody, and everybody's had issues no matter what color. But anyways, we found that the cables were certainly, you could trust the continuity in them. It was no question about that. It wasn't like a chain at all. So then, and I gave the other 6 to John Deere, and I just said, put them on some combines. I said, I gotta have more opinions than just my own here. So they took those 6 combines and they just put 1 on each combine, and then used them for the rest of harvest. And there was, I guess everybody that used them was more satisfied that there was a lot better control than with the chain, because the chains were, the one chain was being put on by the John Deere because they were having so many combine issues with static and smoldering, and some guys lost their combine and burnt right to the ground and different things like that. Anyways, it's kind of grown from there. You know, that first year like I say, we gave 6 away, and the next year we built 50 or 60 of them. We kind of took baby steps, so we didn't, because they were costing some money to do and lots of time to build them too. And then the next year was a couple hundred, and then it came to be 1,000, and it's kind of built its way up. And our area used to have lots of combine fires, and they've just kind of disappeared. We haven't even heard of a combine fire for a number of years. So in spite of there not being a real scientific way other than checking your chains with an ohm meter, when you check your static cable with an ohm meter, there's continuity. There's no way it can't have continuity. So at that, I'm not sure, I can't really remember, but I'm sure I didn't use stainless steel to begin with, but when we started making them in a little bigger way, we wanted some durability, and I didn't want corrosion in the off-season and stuff, so we've made all the static cables. We started making them all out of stainless steel, and the cable stainless steel, and the weight on the end, it's about a 3-pound weight on the end, so it contacts the ground good, and then we're preventing that corrosion in the off-season as well. So it's been a good thing. Basically, to come to something like this, or I've been to the crop production show as well and talked to a lot of farmers. It's just basically to promote awareness that, and lots of guys say, well, I don't worry about static, I'm dragging chains, and I just say, well, I did too, and I still had lots of issues that you know, it took me a while to figure out. But anyways, there isn't nothing more scary than a combine fire when the wind's blowing, and I bet 75% of the time when you find the smoldering going on, it's windy and it's dry and it's scary. So if you've never had the good fortune to have your combine smolder, you're lucky, and I don't know what kind of combine you're on, because I've never seen one yet that isn't prone to this happening. I've never had a fire, but I've helped put some fires out, and sometimes, of course, it's usually a field fire along with a combine fire when you're dealing with it. So it's a big deal. The whole countryside ends up being there, and sometimes you lose, you know, if you lose a combine, sometimes you just, you know, you might not lose anything, but you know, it just depends on what kind of help you got, and if you're prepared with the water truck in the field and extinguishers on your combine and different things like that. So when we had that dozen spots, or 10 or 12 spots smoldering on our combine, I was combining behind the combine that was dropping the smoldering chaff off, and I radioed to the combine. It was my dad was driving the combine. I said, you got to stop. We got something going on. We got smoldering chaff dropping off the combine. He says, well, there's nothing wrong with the combine. And I said, yes, there is. So he stopped, and we looked, and there was just smoldering, just a little bit of smoke coming from all over the place. So what we did to get those spots out, lucky enough, because it was a pretty good wind that morning, I just took one of those chrome fire extinguishers and a leather glove, and I just grabbed all those smoldering spots and we just squirted them out. So we were pretty lucky. But I was scared of what might be going on inside the combine. As it turned out, not much was happening on the inside, which was lucky, but you never know that. But static isn't just it might not just be starting a fire, it can affect your electronics. We had a Hutterite colony that had a cat combine, and they couldn't use the darn thing. It was a brand new combine. They bought 3 of them, and they started out using it, and they got a few hours into it, and something happened to their computer. So they had to wait about 2 weeks for a new computer, and they got it, and something happened to that computer, and they couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So that combine sat most of the fall. As it turned out, that combine, for some particular reason, it wasn't being grounded as well as the other combines. But it was they put a static cable on the combine, and then lo and behold, their computer system worked properly. I don't know why it was different from the other combines, but that's what was wrong with this particular combine. It just wasn't grounded properly and up into the computer system. So that's another thing that can bring you big downtime and a costly breakdown. If you only have one combine in your, well, it doesn't matter how many combines. Nobody wants to have a combine worth $1 million sitting in the corner. So anyways, yeah, it can affect your electronics in a big way too. And it just seems like the newer, or not so much the newer, but the newer combines create more static just because there's more going on. That's how they're getting their bigger capacity, because they are pushing more material through. They aren't just going through a concave and up the straw walkers and bouncing out the back end. They're going, that material's coming out, which most of you guys already know this. I shouldn't even have to say this, but it's coming out into the combine and it's going around and around, and we might be going, around that rotor 10 times before it comes out the other end, and that'll all happen within a second or two. So you know what kind of static is coming from that dry straw going around that shiny metal inside the combine. And so right from the get-go, your header, if you're doing lentils, your header is dragging on the ground with your plastic on the bottom of it. If you don't have plastic, it'll be metal, and if it's just metal, well, you can start a fire just from dragging over a rock. But anyways, the plastic on the front of the header can create static. Then the material sliding up that feeder house, 4 feet long or more, is also creating static. Then it goes through the rotor and then through a couple of beaters and through the chopper. There is a lot going on in these combines that's going to create static. And if you haven't had a smoldering, or if you are just using it ground, do something about it. Don't just, maybe you've been lucky, but that is something you don't want to have. You need and the only thing I know of that anybody's working on, I did see another outfit at one of the shows where it was actually a disc blade they were using for a ground, but it was like $1,500. And I just didn't pay that much attention to what they did for when they transported it or anything like that, because I just knew that even though these make a big difference and they're in the $200 range, farmers are still reluctant. They still think, well, I'm just going to use my chain. I'm not spending $200 to save my $1 million combine, which is kind of weird, but that's how some people feel about it. Anyways, yeah, if you still are using chains, take a good look at the static cable, which the static cable basically is just a mobile grounding system. So it's like a mobile lightning rod, really. So lots of guys have lightning rods on their home, on their shops, or maybe their house as well. And so what happens when the lightning hits it, it just takes it to the ground, and that's what the static cable's doing as well. It's just when the static is in the combine, that static is building constantly, and that the static needs to be drained off. You will still have static even though you have this static cable dragging, because it's constantly, as you're combining, it's constantly building static and voltage inside that combine, and it's got to be drained off in order to keep it as neutral as possible. And even though this is draining it off, there still will be a little bit of static. But if you don't have any kind of a ground at all, when you slide your hands down the ladder to get off or whatever, you'll feel tingling and snapping going on. And hopefully at that point in time you still haven't had your smoldering, but if you're feeling that little snapping is little sparks that often can go just straight into your chaff, and if it gets fanned by the wind, you're off to a good start towards a perfect storm. So, and you just might have a little fun before the day is out. So don't, take a good look at this. Janique is selling them. I guess if you guys, I'm not sure what he keeps around for stock, but if he runs out of them, it's only a phone call away to get more of them. And anyways, I wouldn't be wasting my time with this. I've got lots of irons in the fire, and I wouldn't be wasting my time with this if it didn't work. But I just really encourage everybody to, I got some information over there. Come grab a pamphlet, take it home with you, and just throw in your combine cap if nothing else, so you don't forget about it when harvest comes, because it's a big deal. If you see a combine like that in the field, it's about the sickest feeling you can have. So, anyways, that's all I have to say for today, and thanks, Janique, for having me. And I enjoyed the presentations of all the sprayers today. I custom spray and picked a lot up from that too. So, another good year. I was here 2 years before this, previous to this.
That's
too,
right.
So,
Yeah.
So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you so much for that.